Hi, I'm Fazia. My sister emailed me and said, "Don't come to my wedding. Just watch it on Livestream." No phone call, no explanation, just a link, like I was a distant cousin, not the one paying for the entire thing. But that wasn't the worst part. What hurt more was realizing I'd spent years being useful, not loved, valued for my money, but erased from the moment. How did we get here? Why did no one stop her? And what would you do if the people closest to you decided you were just convenient? Let me tell you what happened next. It was just after 6:01 p.m. when I clicked confirm on the final transfer. $50,000. Gone in under 5 seconds, like it wasn't nearly half the equity I had in this house. I sat back in my kitchen chair, the smell of burnt toast still lingering from a breakfast I'd half finished that morning. On the speakerphone in front of me, my mother was talking over me, again. And Sabine said she can probably squeeze in the orchid wall if we let go of the string quartet. Thoughts? "I don't think Merlina wants to lose the quartet," I said. "That's not what she said earlier," Velda snapped. "Besides, Z, let the bride decide. You're not the one getting married." I bit my lip and blinked toward the fridge. That line. Again. Merlina's voice came through next, chipper but loaded. "Just relax, Z, you've done enough. Just stay in your lane, okay?" It was the third time this week she'd said that. Stay in your lane. As if all I'd done was get in the way. The call ended after a few more passive-aggressive jabs I didn't return. I stayed seated a while longer, rereading the wire transfer confirmation on my screen. 50 grand on top of the 20 I'd already fronted. Venue, catering, custom napkins, even the damn parking validation. For someone who wasn't supposed to make it about herself, I was funding an awful lot of someone else's day. Later that evening, I was curled on the couch, flipping absently through my iPad, when the family group chat buzzed. Merlina had shared a folder of photos from last weekend's brunch shoot, something Sabine insisted on for their wedding website. The album had 17 pictures. In 2, I was visible. In 1, I was blurry in the background, pouring champagne. In another, I was cut off mid-shoulder, like a ghost behind Merlina's silk jumpsuit. I zoomed in on that one. Not even a shadow of my face. Just a suggestion of me. The album caption read, "So grateful to everyone who made this moment so special." I stared at the screen a full minute. Then came a ping. A text from Sabine. "Thanks again for the photographer rec plus payment, Fazia. They turned out beautiful." I didn't reply. What would I have said? "Thank you for erasing me with style." I placed the iPad down gently on the coffee table and walked toward the back patio. The spring air was warm, but not heavy. Just enough wind to make the bushes outside dance a little. The porch light flickered once before stabilizing. I pulled my cardigan tighter and sat down in the old wicker chair Dad had refinished 5 years ago. The cushions were new, but I never replaced the creaky frame. There was something honest about how it groaned under weight. The wine glass on the table was still full. I didn't touch it. Instead, I sat there staring into the middle distance, as if some invisible line had finally been drawn across my world. The silence that night was different. Not sad, not peaceful, just full. It hummed in my ears like static. Maybe because I was finally hearing myself think for the first time in months. I whispered, not to anyone, not even myself, really. "I paid for this family's celebration. Why do I feel like I should apologize for showing up?" The words just hung there. I didn't reach for my phone. I didn't scroll through the messages that would no doubt pile in by morning, each one a new request. Can you call the baker? Can you pay the final balance on the linens? Can you pick up Merlina's hairpiece from the boutique? They never said please. They never said thank you. Only, "We thought you didn't mind." And maybe I hadn't. Maybe for a while, the convenience of being needed had been enough. Being useful meant I couldn't be ignored. But tonight, I realized something worse than being invisible was being visible only when they wanted something. A breeze moved past, rattling the wind chimes Merlina had once called tacky. I liked them. The sound reminded me that some things made noise even when you weren't looking. Inside, the lights in the kitchen were still on. My laptop screen had gone black. But I was wide awake now. I stayed out on the patio longer than usual. The light inside the house had gone dim, and the breeze carried just enough chill to remind me the night wasn't waiting on anyone. I finally stood, stretched the stiffness out of my legs, and headed inside, shutting the sliding door behind me with a soft click. By the time I got upstairs and settled into the corner of my home office, it was close to 9:30. I turned on the desk lamp, booted up my laptop, and opened my budgeting spreadsheet. The wedding expenses were still there, line after line, number after number, all tied to my bank account. Sabine's fees, the custom napkin orders, the deposit for the 4-tier cake Merlina swore she couldn't live without. I leaned back in my chair, rubbing the bridge of my nose when my phone rang. Mom lit up the screen. I hesitated. Let it ring once, twice. Then I picked up. Hey, I said flatly. Velda didn't waste time. I was just checking in. How are you holding up? I heard Merlina's been a little tense. Tense. That's how she framed it. I'm fine, I said. A little tired. There was a pause, followed by a low sigh. Fazia, listen. Your sister's under a lot of pressure. It's her big day, and there are so many moving parts. You know how these things go? I didn't answer right away. She continued, I know you've always been the steady one, the logical one, and I respect that. But maybe now's the time to let Merlina shine. You've had your career, your independence. Merlina only has this. There it was, the familiar script. You're saying I should step aside so she doesn't feel overshadowed, I said, keeping my voice even. I'm saying, just don't make this about you. Please don't ruin this for her. Before I could say another word, she hung up. I stared at the phone, stunned. Not because I hadn't heard it all before, but because this time it didn't sting the same way. Not as much. I went back to the spreadsheet, opened the vendor folder, clicked through receipts. I wasn't doing this for recognition. I'd given up on that years ago. But I wasn't doing it to be erased either. Another ping. I looked down and saw an email notification. Subject line, guest list finalized, from Merlina. I clicked. The message opened with no greeting, no, hey sis, just a statement. After talking with Nathan and his family, we've decided to keep the ceremony very small. Given the seating limits, and some sensitivities on his side, we think it would be best if you attend virtually. We'll send a private link for the live stream. My stomach tightened. This will help keep everything smooth and drama-free. Hope you understand. Then, in italics at the bottom, like a throwaway joke, don't take this the wrong way. LOL. I stared at the screen, not blinking, just frozen. There was no room for misinterpretation, no space to tell myself I was overreacting. I'd been asked, not invited, to watch my sister's wedding on a screen, like a stranger. Like some distant acquaintance, not the woman who had covered nearly every bill. No greeting, no apology. Not even a thank you. Just a link. I sat there motionless for a while, my hands flat on the desk. My office felt colder than before. I glanced at the wine glass I had brought up earlier, still full, still untouched. I read the email again. Then I hit reply. Typed 4 words. Sure, enjoy your day. No punctuation, no emotion, just precision. I clicked send, shut the laptop, and stood. Downstairs, the house was silent. I poured the wine into the sink, washed the glass, dried it. Every motion steady. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just knew. Something had shifted. Something I couldn't name yet, but it felt permanent. I walked back upstairs and crawled into bed. The ceiling fan whirred softly. The email buzzed again. A calendar invite this time, with the live stream link. I turned the phone face down on the nightstand and turned off the lamp. But I didn't sleep. Not yet. Because while they were busy planning the perfect photo ops and floral centerpieces, I was making my own plan. One that didn't include being treated like a placeholder. One that didn't include begging to be seen. The sun hadn't even crept over the rooftops when I got up. No alarm, no noise. Just that heavy stillness you feel when your body gives up on pretending to rest. I slipped on my shoes and grabbed a hoodie off the hook. The sky was still dark blue, just starting to break into gray. I didn't bring my phone. I didn't need to check the time to know it was too early for anyone else to be out. That was the point. The streets were quiet, save for the occasional click of a sprinkler or the rustle of a trash bin knocked crooked by last night's wind. I walked without thinking about where I was going. My feet seemed to know something I didn't, like they had decided that moving forward was better than sitting still. I passed Mrs. Kepler's house. Her porch light was on, and the faint smell of her rosemary bush drifted across the sidewalk. It reminded me of the time I brought her soup after her surgery, and Merlina called it brown water with a superiority complex. I didn't laugh back then, and I definitely wasn't laughing now. My pace slowed near the corner, where the trees shaded the sidewalk just enough to make me feel invisible. That was the first time I noticed how good that felt, being unseen but not ignored. No expectations. No reminders that I was the responsible one, or the sister with the real job. At the end of the street, I turned into the small neighborhood park. The benches were still damp from morning dew, and the swings hung motionless, like they, too, had nothing left to say. I sat down on the farthest bench, the one under the busted light post. That spot had always been mine, since before Merlina had her first boyfriend, before I bought my house, before Nathan was even a name in our lives. And that's when the memories came. Not loud, not fast, just steady, like water under a door. I remembered the dinner 6 years ago. I had just received the Rising Star Award from the firm. A big deal, even if no one in my family fully grasped what it meant. I brought the plaque with me, stupidly, like a child showing off a perfect spelling test. We ate at Merlina's place. Nathan was there too. My mother complimented the table runner before asking if Merlina was finally moving in with him. I had smiled then, nodded, told myself they didn't mean it that way, that it was just a timing thing, that they just didn't know how to express pride, that maybe Merlina needed the spotlight more. I told myself a lot of things. Sitting on that bench now, I didn't feel angry. I felt exhausted from years of rehearsing excuses on their behalf, tired of translating disrespect into neutrality, done rebranding silence as grace. There was one moment, though, that kept coming back to me, clearer than the rest. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the old voice messages. There it was, from last winter. The day after I told Mom I was thinking of starting my own practice. She had called me back late that night. I had saved the message. I pressed play. Her voice was softer than usual, maybe tired, maybe just trying to sound kind. Z, I know you're going through a lot, but you've always been the steady one. I'm proud of you, I am. It's just, I only really have hope left in your sister. She's our last shot at a normal family, you know? Click. I sat there holding the phone like it had gained weight in my hand. I didn't cry. I'd cried the first time I heard it, then again the next 10 times. I used to replay it when I needed motivation, when I felt weak and wanted to remember why I had to push harder, why I had to be okay with not being enough, but not this time. I hovered over the screen for a beat, then tapped delete. The screen blinked and it was gone. Not archived, not moved to a folder. Gone. And I felt it. The first break in the chain. I leaned back against the bench, the wood cool through my sweater. A dog barked in the distance. Somewhere, a door slammed. The day was starting, but I wasn't racing to meet it. For once, I wasn't racing to prove anything. I had been the peacekeeper, the fixer, the one who smoothed out family drama like wrinkles on a cheap tablecloth. But peace shouldn't come at the cost of your own dignity, and fixing something meant it was worth saving. I wasn't so sure this was. I stood and stretched, my legs stiff from the cold. The walk home was slower. I noticed more. The mailboxes needing paint, the weeds growing between the sidewalks, the sound of birds arguing in a tree overhead. Back inside, I made tea. No phone, no laptop. Just hot water, a mug, and silence that didn't feel like punishment. For the first time in my adult life, I had deleted more than a voicemail. I had deleted the idea that I owed them an explanation for growing tired of being the one they only called when it cost them nothing. The next several days moved with the kind of weight you don't notice until it settles in your chest. I kept myself busy. Work, grocery runs, pointless errands just to get out of the house, anything to avoid thinking too long or sitting too still. But the rehearsal dinner was coming, and I had promised to be there. I arrived 20 minutes early, dressed simply but polished. A dove gray dress, pearl studs, low heels. Nothing flashy. I didn't want to draw attention, though part of me wondered what difference that would make. The valet took my car without a word. As I walked into the hotel lobby, I passed the sign propped on an easel. Merlina and Nathan's rehearsal dinner, grand ballroom. A printed list of acknowledgments sat beneath it in elegant script. Special thanks to Nathan's parents, close family friends, the planning team, and Sabine Events. My name was nowhere to be found. I read it twice, then stepped to the side, pretending to fix my earring as Sabine approached. "The ballroom looks incredible," she said with a smile. "You really made this happen." I nodded. Glad it came together. She moved on, already pulled toward a group of vendors, waving her down. I stayed by the entry, just long enough to steady my breathing before making my way inside. The room was beautiful, I'll give them that. Tall centerpieces, custom name cards, gold-rimmed glasses, and menus printed on handmade paper. I found my place card at table 14, pushed back into a corner by the staff hallway. The restrooms were a few feet away. Every time the door swung open, the scent of bleach and something vaguely citrus hit my nose. My seatmate was a cousin I hadn't seen since high school, and a woman I barely recognized who said, "You're the sister, right?" As if I might be the florist instead. Across the ballroom, Merlina was glowing under the soft uplights, standing arm in arm with Nathan while cameras flashed. She raised her glass in a staged toast, perfectly framed between two ivory columns. I wasn't in the shot. I was seated out of range, facing a utility door and a stack of high chairs against the wall. They had physically placed me where I belonged in their minds. Out of sight, out of the way. I didn't finish my plate. I ate a few bites of salad, sipped water, and folded my napkin. I stood slowly, not wanting to draw eyes. I tapped the cousin's shoulder and whispered, "Long day, I'm heading out early." She nodded politely, already checking her phone. No one stopped me. No one noticed. The valet brought my car around within 3 minutes. The ride home was silent. I didn't even turn on the radio. I parked outside the house and sat in the car for a long time, engine off, fingers still curled around the steering wheel. I picked up my phone and opened a new message to Merlina. "Hey, I noticed I wasn't credited anywhere, and my seat was by the restroom." I stared at it, then hit delete. I typed again. "Are we okay?" Backspaced that too. The screen went blank. My reflection in the glass looked tired. Tired of writing polite little sentences to people who never noticed they were cutting me to pieces. I locked the phone, set it aside, and sat back. A thought floated up, clear and steady. No more soft entries. Inside, the house was quiet. I slipped off my shoes by the door, turned on a single lamp in the living room, and dropped my clutch on the couch. My heels had left faint indentations in the rug. That detail stuck with me for some reason. I poured a glass of water and drank it slowly, leaning against the counter. Not angry, not bitter, resolved. They had sent a message, not with words, but with absence, and I received it. Not just in my inbox, not just in the seat near the restroom. I received it loud and clear, broadcast in every empty space where acknowledgement should have lived. And I knew something now, something I hadn't let myself admit until that moment. You don't have to scream to draw a line. You just have to stop explaining yourself to people who are never listening. By the time Friday rolled around, I had done what I always do, pulled myself together. Work meetings, grocery errands, light conversation with a neighbor about the weather. It all helped maintain the illusion that everything was fine. But beneath it, something had shifted. Not broken exactly, just adjusted. Like a door that no longer shuts all the way once the frame warps. That afternoon, I met Noreen for iced tea at the cafe near Barton Springs. We'd been friends since college, the kind of steady friendship that didn't require performance. She texted that morning, asking if I had time to breathe outside work and family noise. I didn't need to ask what she meant. The patio was half-shaded, and the air carried a sticky kind of warmth that clung to your skin. I stirred the ice in my glass, while Noreen kept scanning the dessert menu without really reading it. She was building up to something. I could tell by the way she tapped her nails against her glass. "Foz," she started, still not looking up. I wasn't going to say anything, really, but I can't pretend anymore. I looked at her. Okay. I helped Merlina finalize the table layout last week. She was stressed, I get it. But at one point, she laughed and said, "As long as my sister keeps paying, we're golden." Her exact words. The silence between us thickened. I didn't react right away. Noreen continued, voice lower now, like we were discussing a body buried in her backyard. Then she added, "You know she's not gonna pull out. She never does." And she laughed again, like it was a joke she'd told 100 times. I sat back in my chair, letting the plastic of the seat dig into my spine. My hands stayed folded, tight, like I was afraid they might fly across the table if I let them go. "She's not wrong," I said finally, my voice level. "Not yet, anyway." Noreen shook her head. "You're not a wallet. She's treating you like one." I didn't answer. I just picked up my tea and took a sip. The glass was sweating, and the condensation had pooled beneath it like a slow leak. We parted ways an hour later, after a promise to talk soon that neither of us would need to follow up on immediately. On the drive home, I kept the windows down. The air was thick, but I needed the noise. Silence in the car would have sounded too much like agreement. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the sun had dipped low enough to cast long shadows across the yard. I dropped my purse on the dining table and opened my phone out of habit. Instagram was still up from the morning, and Merlina's profile hovered on my screen like an open wound. Her newest story popped up immediately. "Special thanks to my future mother-in-law for the most heartfelt gift." The video showed her holding the exact necklace I had commissioned, a redesign of Nana's vintage pendant, the one Merlina used to say was too dated for her taste. I had found the jeweler. I had funded it. I had even written the note, "For your something old and something that should always be yours." There was no mention of me, no tag, no trace. She smiled in the video, eyes damp with emotion. "She knew exactly what I wanted," she said to the camera. "What a woman!" I sat down on the edge of the couch, the phone still glowing in my hand. The betrayal didn't come like a punch. It arrived like a headache you didn't realize was building until you couldn't see straight. I didn't text her. I didn't call. I walked to my office instead, pulled out my laptop, and opened the wedding folder I had created 6 months earlier. Contracts, payments, timelines, all organized. I clicked on the florist's agreement. My name on the signature line. The decorator, also mine. I scrolled through PDFs, digital invoices, receipts paid in full. Each document carried a version of my name. F. Saleh. Fazia S. Every floral arch, every chair covering, every personalized centerpiece. I started a new folder, labeled it plainly, "If they push me further." I copied everything into it. No anger, no tears. Just the precision of someone who finally understood that being quiet had never protected her. It had only made her easier to erase. I closed the laptop and let the room fall dark around me. I was done reacting, done letting other people define how much was too much. They thought I wouldn't notice. They forgot I was the one who kept the receipts. I shut the laptop and sat in the dark for a long while, the glow from the hallway faintly outlining the doorway. There was nothing left to process, only decisions to carry out. My hands weren't shaking. That's how I knew I was past the point of reaction. What was coming next wasn't a moment of fury. It was intention. The following evening, I was expected at a cocktail reception hosted by Nathan's family. Another intimate gathering in a boutique venue downtown, filled with people I didn't know, smiling politely while keeping score. I had already chosen my dress weeks ago, a soft lavender number that felt understated and clean. I remember trying it on and thinking it struck the balance between elegant and invisible. Not too flashy, but still enough to say, I exist. I parked near the venue, gave my name at the door, and stepped inside. The air was cool, perfumed with roses and money. I was greeted by a hostess who handed me a name tag. No title, just Fazia. Within minutes, I noticed it. 3 members of the catering staff wore uniforms nearly identical to my dress. Same hue, same hemline, nearly the same neckline. A woman near the bar glanced at me, then nudged her friend and whispered something. Her friend laughed and said, "Didn't realize the servers were off the clock tonight." I didn't react. Not outwardly, but I caught Sabine's eye from across the room. She held the clipboard she was never without, scanning the space, assessing everything. When her eyes met mine, there was a pause. Not apology, recognition. I stayed for 20 minutes, maybe less. I smiled when expected, nodded through hollow greetings, took a single sip of sparkling water, and excused myself. As I walked past the valet, one of them asked, "You done for the night, miss?" I smiled. "More than you know." Back home, I slipped off my shoes and changed into an old sweatshirt and leggings. I didn't turn on the lights. The city outside glowed faintly through the blinds. I opened my laptop again and went straight to the finance dashboard. The final payment, $41,000, was sitting in the queue, scheduled for release at 7 a.m. the next morning. I stared at it. 11 minutes passed, but I didn't move. Then, without a sound, I clicked cancel. The prompt came up on screen. "Are you sure you want to cancel this transfer? This action cannot be undone." I didn't hesitate. Yes. I closed the browser and stood in the stillness of my apartment. There was no rush of satisfaction, just the solid weight of control, settling back where it belonged. Early the next morning, I made my way to the bank. I wore neutral colors, no makeup, hair pulled back. I didn't want to be seen. I wanted to be heard. Carlos, the branch manager, greeted me with his usual gentle professionalism. "Good to see you again, Miss Saleh." I followed him into his office, sliding the folder I'd prepared across the desk. Inside were printed copies of the same contracts I had reviewed the night before. "I'd like to formally cancel the final vendor payments related to this event," I said, keeping my tone neutral. Carlos glanced at the documents. "We can do that, of course. Just know there are some penalties with this timing." "I understand." He hesitated, then leaned forward slightly. "Do you want us to notify the recipients?" I shook my head. "No, they'll figure it out." He nodded and began the paperwork. "You don't owe me an explanation, but you look different today." I smiled, just barely. "I feel different." As I signed the last page, he slid it into a folder and said, "All set. If anything escalates on their end, let us know." They won't escalate. They don't argue with consequences. They just ignore them until it's too late. I left the bank and stepped into the morning light. The air felt clean, crisp for Texas in May. I didn't go home right away. I walked to a bench outside a bakery I used to visit with my dad and watched people pass by. Mothers pushing strollers, a delivery man unloading crates, someone laughing too loudly on speakerphone. The world was moving. I had simply chosen to move with it, on my own terms. No one saw it coming, but that's the thing about quiet people. We make the cleanest cuts. Sunday afternoon moved slowly, the way time drags when you're waiting for something you're pretending not to expect. I was folding laundry on the living room couch, socks, towels, a fitted sheet I still hadn't figured out how to fold properly, when my phone buzzed with a message from my cousin Layla. "Hey, everyone's already on Zoom. They just want to talk. Just hear them out?" It wasn't really a question, and I already knew who everyone meant. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then tapped the link. The screen filled with faces. Velda, my mother, was already talking before I had a chance to greet anyone. Merlina sat with perfect posture, jaw clenched. Uncle Ray looked bored. Nathan appeared in a separate window, sipping something from a ceramic mug, like this was any other Sunday catch-up. No one asked how I was. Velda started with her usual thin-lipped diplomacy. Fazia, sweetheart, we're just concerned. You've always been the one we could count on, and this last-minute thing, well, it doesn't feel like you. Uncle Ray chimed in. We just don't understand how you could pull out this late. It's not about you, it's about the family. I mean, if you ever cared about your sister, Nathan began, but Velda held up her hand as if that were grace. Then Merlina spoke. Calm, measured, almost rehearsed. You've always been jealous. Let's just call it what it is. Every time something goes right for me, you make it about you. And this? This proves it. The room spun without moving. My hands stayed in my lap. I unmuted my mic. My voice didn't shake. Let's make something clear. I didn't cancel your wedding. I canceled my funding. You canceled me when you sent that email. You know, the one where you told me to stay home and watch online like a divorced uncle you don't want photographed. Velda gasped. You're overreacting. Merlina rolled her eyes. You're ruining the most important day of my life. Uncle Ray muttered. You're acting like a martyr. I kept my eyes on the screen. No, I'm just done being the ATM who doesn't ask for a receipt. I'm tired of being told I'm too much whenever I finally notice how little space I'm allowed to take up. I clicked Leave Meeting. The quiet afterward was immediate, not peaceful, just silent, the kind that settles after a door slams. Not even 2 minutes passed before the calls started. First from my mother, then from Merlina, then Layla, then Merlina again. I let each one ring until it stopped. Then came the texts. She's lost it. What the hell is wrong with her? Just fix it, Foz, for once in your life. I sat by the window, watching the sky go from peach to gray, then to a dusty purple that signaled the start of another warm night in Austin. My tea had gone cold, but I still held the mug, as if it gave me something to do with my hands. They don't know me, I said aloud. And it was true. They didn't know the woman who no longer apologized for asking questions. The one who understood that blood doesn't excuse disrespect. That being the dependable one didn't mean I owed them my spine. They knew the version of me that stayed quiet to keep things smooth. The one who sent the check, signed the form, bit her tongue. That version was gone. The silence I'd given them before was permission. This silence was the boundary. And the beauty of a boundary? It doesn't need to be explained. It only needs to be enforced. I was folding a dish towel when the phone rang again. Not a number I recognized, but I answered anyway. Maybe part of me knew. Fazia? Her voice was strained, breathless. I could hear background noise, rushed voices, clinking glassware, someone giving instructions. It was Merlina. I need you to listen, okay? Her tone cracked, then steadied. I messed up. I know I did. I was stressed. Mom was losing it. Nathan's parents were pushing me. But I never wanted it to get like this. I said nothing. She rushed on. We can fix it. I'll change the seat. I'll make a speech. I'll thank you. Just come. There it was. The same instinct to smooth things over, but now wrapped in panic. What she really meant was, please put this fire out so I don't have to admit I lit it. It's not about the chair, Merlina, I said evenly. It's about you making sure I wasn't in the picture unless you needed the checkbook open. Silence on her end. Then, with a cracked breath, please, don't ruin this for me. I'm not ruining anything, I said softly. I just stopped funding the illusion. I ended the call. By 11 a.m., the hotel staff was moving into high gear. Vendors bustled through service hallways. The ballroom shimmered under the light of chandeliers. Roses, candles, chair covers, all lined up like a magazine spread. At exactly 11:23, a courier handed an envelope to Sabine. the coordinator. It was addressed directly to her. She read it once, then again, slower the second time. Her fingers tightened slightly on the paper before she stepped out of view, phone already in hand. Within 15 minutes, everything stopped. Floral staff pulled back arrangements. The catering team halted plating. A row of champagne glasses stood untouched on a silver tray near the entrance. Nathan's father raised his voice, words I couldn't hear, but didn't need to. A woman gasped near the door. Someone knocked over a tray of dessert forks. Merlina, still in her robe with half her hair pinned up, collapsed into a chair in the bridal suite. Her mascara hadn't even been applied yet. The letter had been simple: legal withdrawal of funding, notification of contract cancellation due to breach of terms, an instruction to halt services tied to my name and payment. That's all it took. Back at my house, rain began to tap gently against the windows. Not heavy, just enough to cast a sheen across the street. I was wrapped in a blanket on the couch, a book unopened on my lap, and a mug of tea cooling beside me. I didn't check Instagram. I didn't scroll for updates. I didn't need to see the ripple effect. I had already lived the cause. The phone buzzed. Velda. I let it ring. Then another, Merlina. No name this time, just a heart emoji. I deleted it. None of this had been about revenge. Not really. This wasn't about payback. It was about ending the lie I had participated in for too long. The lie that pretending everything was fine would make it true. It hadn't. I pulled the blanket tighter around my shoulders and leaned into the quiet. There was grief, yes, but it wasn't for the wedding. It wasn't even for my sister. It was for the version of myself that had tried so hard, for so long, to earn a place she had already paid for. I had been their safety net, their second plan, their behind-the-scenes fixer. But what happens when the one holding it all together finally lets go? They wanted a perfect backdrop. They wanted a clean narrative. They wanted a stage. I left them the echo. The sky was overcast the morning I left Austin. A dull gray blanket pressed low across the horizon, but it didn't feel ominous. It felt right, unpolished, honest. I loaded my single suitcase into the trunk of my car, locked the front door behind me, and drove to the airport without saying goodbye to anyone. There were no texts to answer, no last-minute pleas. By the time my plane landed in Denver, the sun had pushed through. I took it as a quiet affirmation, not of triumph, but of movement. Something new. I checked into a small boutique hotel near Capitol Hill, one I'd chosen for its anonymity and modest charm. The woman at the front desk handed me a key card and said, "You're all set. Breakfast runs till 10, and there's a garden terrace if you need some air." I nodded, grateful for the lack of chatter. In the room, I unpacked slowly. A few clothes, my laptop, a book I'd been meaning to finish for months. I folded each item as if it mattered where it landed. There was something meditative about doing something just for myself. Later that evening, I sat on the balcony with a glass of white wine and a grilled salmon plate I'd ordered through room service. Across the courtyard, a couple laughed as they tried to light a cigarette against the wind. They couldn't have been older than 25. Everything about them felt light, unburdened. I didn't envy them. I didn't long to go back. I just observed them the way someone watches birds at a feeder, beautiful, fleeting, no obligation to join in. My phone buzzed once on the side table, a message from a former coworker, forwarding me a post from Merlina's now private Instagram. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you most, but family is everything, and love wins. No mention of the canceled wedding, no details, just enough to frame herself as the one who had been abandoned. I didn't reply. I didn't even open the comment thread. Instead, I powered off my phone and let the quiet come in. The truth is, I didn't need revenge. I didn't even need apology. I needed space. Space from the noise, from the expectations, from the smallness of the role I'd been assigned and dutifully performed for too long. Back in Austin, people were talking. I knew that. Cousins who never called were suddenly curious. Velda hadn't said a word since the collapse at the venue. I imagined her sitting in the kitchen, coffee in hand, rewriting the story in her head. One where I was difficult, one where she did everything she could. They all had their versions, but I had mine, and I had finally chosen to believe it. I wasn't cruel, I wasn't unstable, I wasn't jealous. I was someone who drew a line and didn't step back when they tried to smear it with guilt. And the thing about drawing a line, it doesn't erase what came before, but it redefines what comes next. I stayed in Denver 2 weeks. I read, walked unfamiliar streets, worked remotely. On the third morning, I smiled at the front desk clerk without noticing I'd done it. By the fifth, I didn't flinch when someone asked, "Traveling alone?" On my last evening, I returned to the same balcony where it had begun. A man a few tables away gave me a nod. Friendly, not flirtatious. I returned it, then turned back to my book. I wasn't lonely, I was just alone. There's a difference. I think what people misunderstand about walking away is that they imagine it's dramatic. Doors slamming, voices raised, endings punctuated by one-liners. But most of the time, it's quiet. It's simple. It's someone not showing up where they once would have. No final speech, just absence. When I got back to Austin, I didn't return to the same house. I returned to myself. They'll say I ruined the wedding. I'll say I saved myself. Sometimes, setting a boundary doesn't make you the villain. It makes you free. If there's one thing this entire experience has taught me, it's this. Silence might keep the peace, but it can also cost you your place. And the longer you allow yourself to be reduced, dismissed, or used, the more you forget you were ever whole to begin with. I didn't walk away from my family. I walked toward myself. To those of you watching, maybe you're the one holding everything together. Maybe you've spent years being the responsible one, the forgiving one, the one who just wants everyone to get along. But here's what I want you to know. Being dependable doesn't mean you owe people your dignity. And if you're wondering whether it's okay to choose peace over participation, to choose yourself over the roles others force on you, my answer is yes. Not easy, not clean, but yes. Let me ask you this. Have you ever been made to feel invisible by the people closest to you? Have you ever had to walk away, not because you wanted to, but because staying meant losing yourself? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your story. And if this video made you feel seen, even just a little, let me know by commenting 1 below, or tell me where you're watching from. And if you didn't like it, that's okay too. Let me know what didn't sit right, and let's talk about it. We're not here to be perfect, we're here to be honest. If you'd like to hear more stories like this, real, raw, and rooted in what it means to be human, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Your support helps keep these stories alive and reaching others who might need them too. Thank you for spending your time with me. Until next time, be kind to yourself. You matter more than you know.